ॐ दक्षिणास्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशववामन कृष्णपाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरुः सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरुः गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्. So in the last session, we started the discussion on Anatma. And the Guru told the Shishya that he is going to start the teaching with Atma Anatma Viveka. And that is how Vedanta starts its teaching. It starts with the difference, or it starts with the discrimination between Anatma and Atma. And when it comes to an individual Jiva, what is Anatma? The Anatma is divided for the sake of convenience into three layers. The first layer is the grossest layer. The grossest layer is what is called as the Sthula Sharira, or the gross physical body. Then we have the next one, the next layer, which is a subtler layer than the grosser layer, that is subtler than the Sthula Sharira. This is called as the Sukshma Sharira. And this is one thing which is very much subtler than the gross physical body. Then we have got what is called as the third layer, which is the subtlest of the three layers, which is called as the Karana Shariram. Karana Shariram also is called as the causal body. And this causal body is called Karanam, or the causal body, because it is from this causal body, which is like a seed, from which the Sukshma Sharira and the Sthula Sharira emerge. Now, what is the difference between Sthula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, and Karana Shariram? Sthula Shariram is Vyaktam, that is that which is absolutely clearly available to me for perception. For all my sense organs, my physical body or Sthula Shariram is perceptible. In the same way, it is perceptible for other people also. It is very short lived, possibly between maximum about maybe 100 to 120 years in a human being. We do not know about the other animals, they have got their own lifespan. Anyway, the physical body has got its specific lifespan. It comes at a point in time which we call as the date of birth, which disappears at a point in time. And in the previous verse, in the 88th verse, we saw that the Sthula Shariram is made out of the Panchikrita Panchamahabhutas. Panchikrita Panchamahabhutas means grossified five great elements. We know that the entire universe comes from the five elements: Akasha, Vayuhu, Agnihi, Apaha, and Prithvi. And therefore, the entire creation, which includes this physical body of every jiva, also is ultimately formed by or comes from these five bhutas. Bhutas means elements, pancha mahabhutas, five great elements. And these five elements start as sukshma panchabhutani, and these sukshma panchabhutani go into form the sukshma sharira. But now we have not yet come to the sukshma sharira. I just introduced yesterday, in the last session, I just introduced this Sukshma Sharira. But then now we are going to see that the Sthula Sharira is Panchikrita Pancha Mahabhutas. This is what is called as the grossification of the five elements from which the gross physical body has formed. The gross physical body is formed by this, and which was called as what? Karma. It is got something which is got or which is born out of purva karmana. Purva karmana, the previous karmas of the particular jiva decide what kind of a physical body this time this body has to have. So the sthula sharira is dependent upon the purva karmas. Also, it was called in the verse 88, samutpannam idam. That means this is a physical body which is put together very intelligently by Ishvara, by Prakriti, very intelligently put together by the Prakriti. And then we saw that it is called as Bhoga Ayatanam. Bhoga Ayatana means that, which is the locus of the experience of, whatever is happening in the world. Like this Sthula Shariram is what interacts with the Sthula Prapancha. Whenever there is an interaction that is taking place between this physical body and the physical universe, it is this physical body which is the locus of all the experiences, and therefore it was called as Bhoga Ayatanam. It is Bhoga Ayatanam. And what is the specific avastha in which it is predominant? It is predominant in the Jagrit avastha. It is absolutely active in the Jagrit avastha. In the Swapna avastha, in the dream state, it is not very active. It is not predominantly active. It is lying down in the bed and it is overcome by sleep. So the physical body is in no way interacting with the world outside during Swapna avastha, whereas only in Jagrad avastha, this physical body, gross physical body, or what we call as the, ultimately in our Upanishad language, in the Taittiriya Upanishad language, it is called as the Annamaya Kosha. I have discussed this in Bhagavad Gita also, that these three layers, the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira, are discussed, in the form of the five layers or five, layers of the Pancha Koshas. Pancha Koshas are also discussed, taking these three, as the elements, the three as the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira. These three are further divided into five layers. So we have dealt with the Annamaya Sharira, or what we call as the Sthula Sharira, in the 88th verse. And in the last session, we started the introduction of the Sukshma Sharira also. So what is this Sukshma Sharira? The Sukshma Sharira is said here in the verse 96, 96th verse. It is said that वागादिपञ्च श्रवणादिपञ्च प्राणादिपञ्चाभ्रमुखानि पञ्च बुद्ध्याद्यविद्यापि च कामकर्मणि पुर्यष्टकं सूक्ष्मशरीरमाहुः. Sukshma Shariram Ahuhu, the last two words. The Sukshma Sharira is called Sukshma Sharira because of what? It talks about here. This Sukshma Sharira is made up of 8 localities. Therefore, it is called as the Puri Ashtakam. Puri Ashtakam means that particular Sukshma Sharira which has got 8 localities, or it can be divided into a composite of 8 groups. And what are those 8 groups? I have discussed in the last session. Vagadi Pancha. Vag Adi Pancha Karmendriyani. That is one group. Then Shravanadi Pancha. Shravanadi Pancha Jnanendriyani. That is the second group. Pranadi Pancha. The Pancha Pranas. Pancha Pranas means Prana, Apana, Samana, Vyana, Udana. So these are the five-fold pranas. If the Sthula Sharira is the anatomical body, then the Sukshma Sharira is called as the physiological body. All the physiological functions of the body are carried on by these Pancha Pranas. So what are these Pancha Pranas? The Prana, Apana, Samana, Udana and Vyana deal with the respiratory prana, then the excretory prana, then it deals with actually the circulatory prana, the digestive prana, and also what is called as the reversing prana. At the time of death, it is the Udana prana which actually takes the body away, the Sukshma Sharira away. So here it is the Pancha Pranas, Pancha Jnanendriyas, Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Abra Mukhani. Abramukhani. Abra means space onwards. Space onwards, five elements. Yes, this particular body also contains the five elements in the form of space. We have the space, which is actually, the space is something which is there in our stomach also. The space is there, and the space is there even in our lungs. The space is supposed to be there in our heart also, so which is called as the Hridaya Akasha or Hrid Akasha. So there are, these five elements are there in the form of all the components of the physical and the subtle bodies. Therefore, pancha, these are the five, abramukhani, starting from space: akasha, vayuhu, agnihi, apaha, prithvi. All these five, space onwards, all the five elements are also there. So this is the fourth group. Then we have buddhi, avidyadi, avidya, api, kama, karmani. Buddhi, avidya, kama, and karma. Buddhi means what? The resolving capacity. The capacity to have the intellectual thinking. The intellect is called as buddhi, which has the capacity to think, which has the capacity to discriminate, and which has the capacity to actually resolve and make a decision. So this is called as the buddhi, which is also a part of the Sukshma Sharira and also avidya. Avidya means what? My confusions. All my confusions are also in my Sukshma Sharira only. Avidya here can mean ignorance also, but because of ignorance, whatever confusion I have in the form of taking myself to be other than what I am, taking myself to be the body mind sense complex, this is what is called as the avidya here. So this avidya is also a part of the Sukshma Sharira. Kama, various emotions. The various emotions are there also, which are in the form of the Sukshma Sharira. My emotions like Kama, Krodha, Raga, Dvesha, Mada, Matsarya, all these things ultimately also belong to the Sukshma Sharira only. Then Karmani, all the desire to do actions, all that I want to do, the desires that I want to, fulfill, the karmas that I want to do, all these things belong to the Sukshma Sharira. And he says, Puri Ashtakam Sukshma Sharira Mahuhu. This is what is called as the Puri Ashtakam. Puri Ashtakam means a city made up of 8 localities, a city made up of 8 groups of things. So these are the 8 groups of things with which it is made. If you go to Tattva Bodha, in Tattva Bodha it is said that the Sukshma Sharira is made up of 17 organs. And here, what does Tattva Bodha say? It is made up of, what are the 17 organs of Sukshma Sharira? Pancha Jnanendriyas, Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Pranas, Manaha, and Buddhi. So all these avidya, kama, and karma, the desire to act, the various emotions, and my confusions and avidya, all these are included in the antakarana there. That is the difference. We have certain differences in the way Tattvabodha talks about Sukshma Sharira, Sthula Sharira, and how Vivekachudamani talks about Sukshma Sharira, Sthula Sharira, etc. We have to see the difference here. There, it is very simple, very simply, in a very simple way, because that is the primer of Vedanta. Tattvabodha says that there are 17 organs. Here also, if you really look at it, there is only 17. But then he has added the 5 Panchabhutas, because this whole body is existing in Panchabhutas. It is made up of Panchabhutas, and therefore the Pancha Mahabhutas are also a part of the Sukshma Sharira. And what does the Tattva Bodha say? Apanchikrita Panchabhutani, it says. Apanchikrita Panchabhutani. That means non-grossified 5 elements. Ungrossified 5 elements are what is causing this Sukshma Sharira. It is ungrossified. Whereas what was Sthula Sharira? Panchikrita Panchabhutani. What is Sukshma Sharira? Apanchikrita Panchabhutani. Apanchikrita means ungrossified or non-grossified. This is what is the component of Sukshma Sharira. And what is this Sukshma Sharira? It is that which is the Karanam, Bhoga Karanam. It is going to be said in the future verses also. If the Sthula Sharira is Bhoga Ayatanam, if the Sthula Sharira is the location, it is the locus or the location in which all the experiences are taking place, the Sukshma Sharira is the instrument, the Karanam, through which all the experiences are taking place. So the Sukshma Shariram is the Karanam, which is going to be talked about in the next verses. Now we'll go to the 97th verse and the 98th verse. The 97th verse and the 98th verse again are dealing with the Sukshma Sharira only. Further details on the Sukshma Sharira are dealt with. Here in the 97th verse it says, Idam Shariram Shrunu Sukshma Sangnitam Lingam Tva Panchikrita Bhuta Sambhavam Savasanam Karma Phalanubhavakam Swajnanato Nadirupadhiratmanaha Swapno Bhavatyasya Vibhaktyavasta Swamatra Sheshena Vibhati Yatra. So here the further descriptions of the Sukshma Sharira are talked about. Now what are these further descriptions of the Sukshma Sharira? He says, Idam Shariram Shrunu Sukshma Sangitam. This Sukshma Sharira is called as Sukshma Sharira. What is this Sukshma Sharira? The Puri Ashtakam, the eight-folded or the eight-parted city which was talked about in the previous verse. This particular Shariram is called as the Sukshma Shariram, Sukshma Sangitam. That means it is named as the Sukshma Shariram. And what is it called as? It is also called as the Linga Shariram. He says Lingam, Lingam. Sukshma Shariram is also called as the Linga Shariram. Why is it called as the Linga Shariram? It is called as the Linga Shariram because it is the presence of Sukshma Shariram which is going to give me the indication that the physical body is alive. Otherwise, how will you know? The presence of the Sukshma Sharira within the Sthula Sharira is what is indicative of the physical body being alive. Because physical body is jada actually. What is the physical body made sentient by? It is the Sukshma Sharira which makes the physical body sentient and act. Supposing there is a body lying on the bed. Now, when a Sthula Sharira is sleeping and lying on the bed also, it looks very jadam, correct? And when the Sthula Sharira is dead also, it looks very jadam, that is. Then how do you differentiate whether this physical body is a sleeping body or whether it is a dead body? The presence of Sukshma Sharira within the physical body indicates that the physical body is alive and the physical body is sentient. In the active stage, in the Jagrita Avastha, the physical body is active because of the presence of this Linga Sharira or Sukshma Sharira. Therefore, it is called as Linga Sharira. Linga means what? That which indicates. Lingyate anena iti lingam. That means what? This Sukshma Sharira indicates something. What does the Sukshma Sharira indicate? It indicates that the Sthula Shariram is alive. It is not dead. In a dead body, there is no Sukshma Sharira. Even when the person is sleeping, as I said, the Sthula Sharira is almost as though dead. But what is it that indicates that there is a presence of Sukshma Sharira in this sleeping body? It is the presence of the prana. Prana is the Sukshma Sharira, isn't it? Therefore, the presence of the prana, all the other aspects of Sukshma Sharira are resolved during sleep. It is only the prana which is functioning. Therefore, we are not afraid to go to sleep. We are not afraid that we'll be dead if we go to sleep because the prana is functioning. The Sukshma Sharira, even in a sleeping body, is present. Even in a dead body, the Sukshma Sharira is not present. Therefore, the Sukshma Sharira is also called as the Linga Sharira. It is also called as the Lingam because it is this Sukshma Sharira which indicates that the Sthula Shariram is alive and therefore it is called as Lingam. The fourth word, Idam Shariram Shrunu Sukshma Sanghitam. This Sharira, which we talked about in the previous verse, He Shisha, may you understand that it is called by the name of Sukshma Sharira. And this Sukshma Sharira is also called as the Linga Sharira. Linga Sharira because it indicates the presence of sentience, the presence of life in the Sthula Sharira. What is death? Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Viyoga is called as death. When Sukshma Sharira leaves the physical body and leaves the physical body totally jada and insentient, that process of separation of the Sukshma Sharira from the Sthula Sharira is called as death. And what is birth? When the Sukshma Sharira gets associated with another body and makes that body sentient, it is called as the birth. Therefore, Stula Sukshma Sharira Viyoga is called as death, and by this it indicates that there is life principle in the Stula Sharira and the Stula Sharira is sentient. This is made out by the presence of Sukshma Sharira in the Stula Sharira, and therefore this is called as the Linga Sharira, Lingam. And what is it, Lingam? It is to apanchikrita bhuta sambhavam. Pancha Mahabhutas here are apanchikritani. That means they are still in the subtle form. What was it in the Stula Sharira? Panchikrita Pancha Bhutani. That means what? Grossified five elements was Stula Sharira. Ungrossified, that means the five elements in their Sukshma form only, in their ungrossified subtle form, in the subtle matter, it remains as subtle Panchamahabhutas in the Sukshma Sharira. Therefore, apanchikrita bhuta sambhavam. This Sukshma Sharira is made up of apanchikrita Panchamahabhutani and Savasanam. Next, Savasanam. It is this Sukshma Sharira which carries all the experiences called as vasanas or impressions from the previous lives. See, in psychology, we call it subconscious, unconscious. And in psychology, we say very deep layers of the mind. There are so many impressions which are there. What is the meaning of all this? All this means that it is the Sukshma Sharira, which is a traveling Sharira. See, it is the same Sukshma Sharira which all of us have been having from the beginning of not only this creation, from many, many creations. It is only this Sukshma Sharira which has been traveling and getting into new bodies. What did Lord Krishna say? Vasansi jirnani yatha vihaya. Like this physical body is given up at the end of every life, but it is the Sukshma Sharira, which is the traveling Sharira, which travels, and when the proper karmas from the Sanchita karmas get ready, this Sukshma Sharira embodies itself into another body, into another Sthula Sharira, and it is that which carries all the vasanas. This is how we see the examples of sometimes child prodigies, in various fields, like we may have a Ramanujam in the field of mathematics, or we may have some child prodigies in music, in dance, etc. We have seen. What is it? The previous janmas. It may not be immediate previous janma, but some of the previous janmas vasanas are carried by this Sukshma Sharira when it comes into the next body. And therefore, this Sukshma Sharira, which is a traveling Sukshma Sharira, which carries with it all the impressions, all the vasanas, which are gained by the experiences of the previous bodies. In the previous bodies, whatever experiences this Sukshma Sharira has gone through, this Sukshma Sharira carries the impressions or the vasanas. These impressions are called as vasanas. Samskaras also they are called vasanas or samskaras or impressions. They are carried by the Sukshma Sharira, and therefore we may find that we remember certain things from our previous lives and probably carry on the same kind of activities because of the vasanas which we are carrying. So it is savasanam. This is the what is called as the a body which is full of the vasanas or experiences of the previous lives, and karma phala anubhavakam. It is that which karma phala anubhavakam. Though the sthula sharira is experience ayatanam, bhoga ayatanam. But what is it that experiences the karma phala? It is the sukshma sharira because it has carried with it all the karma phalas. Whenever death takes place, what travels? The sukshma sharira along with the Karana Sharira, with all the impressions and vasanas and all the Sanchita karmas. We saw that in the 8th chapter. In the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we saw that whenever there is, death, the Sukshma Sharira, along with the Karana Sharira and the Chidabhasa, leaves the physical body. And this combination, this package, carries with it all the karma phalas, sanchita karma phalas. And when this Sukshma Sharira embodies itself into another new physical body, it undergoes, it experiences the karma phalas which have fructified in this life as prarabdha karma. A portion of the sanchita karma. Sanchita karma means it's like what amount of money you have in the bank, in a fixed deposit or in the SB account. As and when you want to withdraw money. So whatever is that, maybe I have some 2 lakhs rupees in my SB account, but I withdraw say 10,000 rupees this time. So this 10,000 rupees which I have withdrawn is for now. Similarly, when this body has come, it has withdrawn some amount of karma phalas from my sanchita karma deposit, and then it is those karma phalas which have been withdrawn are going to be the karmas which are called as prarabdha karmas, which are going to be experienced, which have to be experienced in this particular lifetime. Therefore, karma phala anubhavakam, it is karma phala anubhavakam, swa ajnanato anadihi upadhihi atmanaha. This Sukshma Sharira is ignorant of the fact that it is anatma, swa ajnana, because of ignorance of the fact that the Sukshma Sharira does not understand its real nature. Though there is buddhi, though there is mind as a part of the Sukshma Shariram, this Sukshma Shariram is ignorant. It is covered by ignorance. The buddhi is covered, avarana, by maya or ignorance, because of which it does not understand its true nature and it becomes an upadhi for Atma. What is the meaning of upadhi for Atma? Sukshma Sharira becomes a reflecting medium for the Atma to reflect as the Chidabhasa. We saw it in the 13th chapter. Isn't it? What is Abhasa Chaitanyam? Now there is Atma everywhere. I have explained this to you earlier also, but I will explain again. The Atma is everywhere. The consciousness, the light of consciousness is our Atma, is all pervading, it is everywhere. But in every Jiva, this Sukshma Sharira, being a very, very subtle medium, this very subtle medium is a medium of reflection. And in this very subtle medium of reflection, the consciousness reflects itself, especially in the buddhi part of the Sukshma Shariram, and forms a reflection. So Atma forms a reflection in the Sukshma Sharira, in the buddhi especially, and this reflection of Atma in the Sukshma Sharira is called as Chidabhasa or the Jiva. So what is this Jiva? I have a Sthula Shariram and I call myself a Jiva. What is this Jiva? That Atma Chaitanyam reflected in my Sukshma Shariram, which reflection is called as the Jiva. And in the Sukshma Sharira, this reflection called as Chidabhasa, along with the Sukshma Sharira, becomes ignorant of the fact that I am actually a reflection of this Atma Swarupa. The Jiva thinks it is an independent entity and carries on all its activities. Therefore, this Sukshma Sharira is an Upadhi. Upadhi means what? It is a medium in which this consciousness or Atma reflects itself. Without the consciousness, there is no Sukshma Sharira, and Sukshma Sharira by itself, without reflecting the consciousness, cannot really do anything. Therefore, the Sukshma Sharira can be called as an instrument of Atma. The Atma by itself cannot do anything. Atma is a karta, Atma is a bhokta, whereas Sukshma Sharira is the karta, Sukshma Sharira is the bhokta, which we have already seen in Bhagavad Gita. So, what is it that actually makes you feel that this Atma is the karta bhokta? It is the Sukshma Shariram. It is the instrument. It is the instrument of Atma. Therefore, Upadhihi Atmanaha means it is the instrument for Atma. Sukshma Sharira acts as or behaves as an Upadhi for Atma. Upadhi means it acts as a medium, it acts as an instrument for Atma. See, the instrument by itself cannot function, correct? The instrument requires the wielder of the instrument. Therefore, the Sukshma Sharira as an instrument by itself cannot function by itself without the Atma. Now, the Atma cannot function without the instrument. It is going to be said in the next verse, giving the example of a carpenter. If a carpenter has to work, he has to have his instruments. Without the instruments, the carpenter cannot do any work. But the instruments by themselves also cannot do any work without the carpenter. Therefore, like that, Atma is the wielder of the instrument called as Sukshma Sharira. Without Atma, Sukshma Sharira cannot function, and without the instrument of Sukshma Sharira, Atma cannot function. And if the Atma has to function as a Jiva, it requires the instrument of Sukshma Sharira. Therefore, here it is said, Swa Ajnanataha Anadihi Upadhihi Atmanaha. Sukshma Sharira is Anadi. That means what? For creations and creations, this Sukshma Sharira is going to go on and on and on and on. Unless the person understands this knowledge and frees himself once for all. Unless the person attains moksha. Moksha is the only way. When I attain moksha, when I understand that I am not the Sthula Sharira, I am not the Sukshma Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira is also Anatma, I am not the Sukshma Sharira also, I am but that Atma. As Sukshma Sharira, I am merely an instrument of Atma. I am nothing but the Atma alone. Unless this knowledge comes, which we call as moksha, the Sukshma Sharira continues to travel, continues to travel. So we can imagine now all of us for how many millions of lives and how many millions of creations we have come here in various lokas, in various physical bodies, because this Sukshma Sharira only is acting as an instrument. So he says, Swa Ajnanataha, Swa Ajnanataha, because of this Ajnana which is there in it, because of not knowing my real nature, considering myself to be the Sthula Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, this Sukshma Sharira, Anadihi, all over again and again, it comes back again and again and again into this form, and then it is a Upadhi. It is a never ending Upadhi. It is a medium through which Atma manifests. And what is its avastha, specific avastha, where it is independently active? Like we saw, the Sthula Shariram is independently active in Jagrata Avastha. Of course, in Jagrata Avastha, all the three Sharirams are working. Sthula Shariram is there, Sukshma Shariram is there, Karana Shariram also is there. All the three bodies are active in the Jagrata Avastha. But that which is the most active is the Sthula Shariram. Similarly, here there is one Avastha, there is one state of the mind, there is one state of the Jiva in which Sukshma Sharira is independently functioning. In Jagrata Avastha, Sukshma Sharira cannot function independently. It is very much dependent upon the Sthula Shariram to function. But in one Avastha called as Swapna Avastha, in the state of dream, it is only the Sukshma Sharira which independently is active. It does not need the help of Sthula Sharira. Of course, Karana Sharira is all the time there, because Karana Sharira is the bija, it is the seed from which the Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira are coming out. Therefore, in Jagrata Avastha also the Karana Sharira is there. In Swapnavastha also it is there. In Nidravastha also Karana Sharira is there. But it manifests itself later in Nidravastha, which is going to be told later. But here, what is the maximum manifestation of Sukshma Sharira? It is in Swapnavastha. In the dream state, when the physical body is not active, when the physical body is folded up, it is this Sukshma Sharira which culls out the memories which are stored in the mind, in the deeper layers of the mind, and projects a dream. And it is this Sukshma Sharira which becomes the dream person. It is the Sukshma Sharira which becomes the dream situation. It is the Sukshma Sharira which becomes the objects in the dream situation. And it is the Sukshma Sharira which enjoys the dream or suffers the dream or experiences the dream. In Jagrat Avastha, the Sukshma Sharira experiences the karma phalas, which we have already told. In Swapnavastha, this Sukshma Sharira independently, without the help of Sthula Sharira, goes through its own experience of Swapnavastha. Therefore, where is Sthula Sharira active? Predominantly, Sthula Sharira is active in Jagrat Avastha. Predominantly, Sukshma Sharira is active in Swapna Avastha. That is what he is saying. Swapnaha bhavati asya vibhakti avastha. It is a special avastha. Vibhakti avastha means special avastha. It is an independent avastha in which the Sukshma Shariram is going to act independently. It is going to be present absolutely independently. It is going to be present in the Swapna avastha only. And therefore, Swamatra Sheshena Vibhati Yatra. By itself it shines. It shines by itself. It does not need any other help from the Sthula Sharira. Like in going through the Karma Phalas, it does not need the help of Sthula Sharira. Of course, the Karana Sharira is there in the background. Wherever Sthula Sharira is functioning, Sukshma Sharira is functioning, the Karana Avastha or the Karana Sharira is there, but then it is not manifest, it is not independently manifest in Sthula Avastha or Sukshma Avastha. So, Sthula Avastha is called as Jagrat Avastha, Sukshma Avastha is called as the Swapna Avastha, and the Karana Avastha is called as the Sushupti Avastha, which we are going to see in the next 2 or 3 verses. So, with this, some of the explanations of the Sukshma Sharira are over. One more verse is there. Bhagwan Shankaracharya uses one more verse to describe this Sukshma Sharira. So, what does he say? Verse number 100. In the verse number 100, he talks about the Sukshma Sharira's other features of Sukshma Sharira. He says, सर्वव्यापृतिकरणं लिङ्गमिदं स्याच्चिदात्मनः पुंसः वास्यादिकमिव तक्ष्णः तेनैवात्मा भवत्यसङ्गोऽयम्. I have used the Bhashya way of chanting here because this particular verse does not fall into any particular meter. Either in the Anushtup or Trishtup Chandas, it does not fall in. So, Savyapritikaranam. Savyapritikaranam. It is an instrument. Just like Sthula Shariram was Bhoga Ayatanam, the Sukshma Shariram is the Bhoga Karanam or the instrument. Savyapritikaranam. Savyapritikaranam means for this Jiva, this works as an instrument. Savyapritikaranam lingamidam. Lingam idam. It is lingam. It is indicative. It indicates that there is sentience and there is life in the physical body. And swavyapritikaranam. It is an independent instrument of the Atma. And what kind of an instrument it is? Let us go to the next line. Vasyadikamiva takshnaha. Takshnaha means a carpenter. I already gave you that example in the last verse itself. He says, the Linga Sharira, the Lingam or the Linga Sharira, Lingamidam. Lingamidam means Sukshma Shariram idam, Karanam, Sarva Vyapriti Karanam. It is all the time, in all this, in Jagrat Avastha also, in the Swapna Avastha also, it is a Karanam of Atma. It is the Karanam, Savyapriti Karanam. And what kind of a Karanam here? It is, he says, Vasi Adikamiva. Vasyadikamiva means Vasi Adika. Vasi means a chisel, an instrument of the carpenter, which is chisel. Vasyadikam. Vasi Adikam means like the chisel, etc. Idam Linga Shariram. This Linga Shariram is like an instrument for a carpenter. Now, Takshnaha Vasadikamiva. That means for a carpenter, how the chisel, etc., are the instruments by which the carpenter is able to do its job. Similarly, This Sukshma Shariram, Lingam Shariram Idar, Syat Chidatmanaha Pumsaha. For this Chidatma, for this Jiva, it is Karanam Bhavati. So you have to say Vasyadikam iva takshnaha tenaiva Atma, this Sukshma Sharira, Bhavati Asangoyam. Atma is Asanga. Atma is a Sangha. Atma does not have any kind of a Sangha with this kind, with the Sukshma Shariram. But this Sukshma Shariram acts as an instrument. Like what Bhagavan Krishna said, I do all everything, but there is no karma for me. Trishu Lokeshu, there is no karma for me. It is this body, mind sense complex of Krishna which is doing all the work. But then, actually speaking, I, Ishvara or Atma is Asanga. This unattached, Asangaha, uninvolved Atma remains uninvolved. It is not involved in any action. Then where is the action happening? How is the action happening? All the actions are happening in the Sukshma Sharira. How are the actions happening in the Sukshma Sharira? The Sukshma Sharira behaves or functions as an instrument of Atma. Though Atma is Asangoyam Atma, this Atma is Asanga, but then for this Atma, this Sukshma Sharira acts as an instrument. Just like chisel, etc., are instruments for a carpenter. Now, a chisel alone by itself cannot do any work, correct? The carpenter alone cannot do any work. Supposing you take the carpenter to be the Atma, just in the example, this is what the example says. Supposing you say that the carpenter is Atma, the Atma by itself, because it is Asanga, the Atma by itself cannot do any work. It requires an instrument, correct? Therefore, just like the carpenter is Asanga with his instruments, but then he needs those instruments by doing any of his carpentry work. Similarly, the Atma is Asanga. It is not involved with anything. But for the Atma to function as a Jiva, for all the activities of the Jivas to happen, for everything, all the actions to go on, like breathing or seeing, or all the actions of the Jnanendriyas and the Karmendriyas have to happen, Atma has to bless. Atma has to bless with its consciousness, and the Sukshma Sharira acts as the Karanam. So, just like for a carpenter, chisel, etc., are the Karanam because of which the carpenter is able to do his function. Similarly, the Sukshma Sharira is the Karanam or the Upakaranam or the instrument through which the Atma is able to function as a Jiva. So, Chidatmanaha Pumsaha. For this Chidatma, or for this consciousness Atma, to function as a Jiva, Pumsaha, to function as a Jiva, this Asanga Atma requires the instrument of Sukshma Sharira. Therefore, what is Sukshma Sharira? We have seen various points in the previous verses. We have seen what these are. Now, this Sukshma Sharira is a Puriyashtakam. That means what? It is made up of 8 groups of localities: Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Jnanendriyas, Pancha Pranas, then Pancha Bhutas, then the Buddhi, then ignorance or confusion, then Kamaha, emotions, and Karma, the desire to act, the actions. All of them are in the Sukshma Sharira. And in the 97th verse, he said, this Shariram is also called as Linga Shariram because it indicates the presence of sentience or life in the Sthula Shariram, and Lingyate Anena. It indicates the presence of sentience and life. Therefore, it is called as the Linga Shariram, and also the Sukshma Sharira carries the vasanas. It carries the impressions from the previous lives, from the millions of lives that we have come across. This Sukshma Sharira carries all the impressions, and then it goes through all the bhoga, and also it is Karma Phala Anubhavakam. It is the the experiencer. Karma phala anubhavakam means it is the experiencer, and swataha it is ajnanataha. Swataha it is insentient, it has no jnanam. Swataha it is panchabhutas, therefore by itself it is really not living, it is jada. Sukshma Shariram is also jada, but because it reflects the Atma Chaitanyam, it becomes sentient. And the reflection of Atma Chaitanyam in the Sukshma Shariram is called as Chidabhasa, and the presence of Chidabhasa along with the Sukshma Shariram is called as the Jiva, and this is how the Jiva becomes sentient. And the Sukshma Shariram becomes a sentient medium, and this sentient is transferred to the Sthula Shariram also. So what does it mean? The Sukshma Sharira borrows consciousness, borrows existence, borrows sentience from the Atma. It itself becomes sentient and conscious, and then in turn, like a relay race, it transfers the sentience and the existence and consciousness is transferred to the Sthula Shariram. This is how the Sthula Shariram becomes also conscious. Now I say that Sthula Shariram is conscious. It gets its consciousness or sentience and its existence borrowed from Sukshma Shariram, because Sukshma Shariram is the instrument of Atma. And from where does the Sukshma Shariram get its sentience, its existence, its consciousness? It gets its sentience from the Atma, and therefore it is called as the instrument of the Atma, as it is told in the next verse, in the 100th verse. And which is its avastha, in which it is there exclusively functioning. It is the Sukshma Sharira's avastha, exclusive avastha, is called as the Swapna avastha, in the dream state, without the help of the physical body, backed by the Atma and Karana Shariram. It is the Sukshma Sharira which experiences the dream state. All the experiences that we experience in the dream state are experienced only by the Sukshma Sharira getting sentience from Atma. Therefore, we can say it is the Atma along with Sukshma Sharira which becomes the Bhokta of the Swapna state. It is what is called as the Swapna Avastha. So, with this, the Linga Shariram or Sukshma Shariram is completed. Next, we go to the third level of the Anatma, which Bhagwan Shankaracharya calls as Karana Shariram or Maya. And here, Karana Shariram means what? Karana Shariram is the causal body. See, one thing we have to understand, when we look from the point of view of the individual, the Sthula Sharira, this is individual. There is a corresponding Sthula Prapancha also with which this Sthula Sharira interacts in the Jagrata Avastha. Then, from the point of the individual, there is the Sukshma Sharira, which when extended into the world outside, which is called as the Sukshma Prapancha, and the Sukshma Prapancha is experienced by the Sukshma Sharira in the state of the dream. Now, Karana Sharira is, if you extend, it is called as Avyaktam or Maya, which Bhagwan Krishna talks about, in the 9th chapter. He says, Swamayam Adhishtaya, I take control of this Prakriti or Maya and Visrajami Punah Punaha. I again project this whole world again and again, taking my Maya under my control. And what is this Maya? In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan Krishna calls this as Apara Prakriti. So whenever Maya is dealt with, whenever Prakriti is dealt with, it is Karana Sharira, Karana Prapancha. No distinction is made here. In Sthula Shariram, when describing the Sthula Shariram, Sthula Prapancham is described as an extension of Sthula Sharira. Sukshma Prapancha is decided or described as an extension of Sukshma Sharira. Whereas when it comes to Karana Avastha, because Karana Avastha is Avyakta Avastha, Karana Avastha is Nidra Avastha, where there is no differentiation like in Sthula and Sukshma Avastha. So in Karana Avastha, we find that Karana Prapancha and Karana Sharira are described together. Therefore, here, when Karana Shariram is described, Bhagwan Shankaracharya is describing the Karana Avastha, and that Apara Prakriti, which was called as Maya by Lord Krishna, here Bhagwan Shankaracharya uses the same name Maya for the Karana Sharira also. So let us read the 108th verse. 108th verse in the main, in the original, it is talking about the Karana Sharira or Karana Avastha, which is also called as Maya. How does it describe it? Avyaktanamni Paramesha Shaktihi Anadya Vidya Triguణatmika Para Karyanumeya Sudhiyaiva Maya Yaya Jagat Sarvamidam Prasuyate. Yaya Mayaya Jagat Sarvam Idam Prasuyate. So the whole world is projected by a para prakriti, taking the support of para prakriti, and the whole universe of names and forms is created. Okay, Maya Prakriti, my Prakriti, Suyate Characharam Jagat, Characharam Jagam Idam, this this Jagat, Charachara Jagat, Suyate, this Maya, my Maya Shakti actually projects or creates this entire world of Charachara Jagat. That is what Lord Krishna said in the 7th chapter and also in the 9th chapter. And this Maya, this Karana Prapancha, this Karana Avastha is also called as Karana Sharira. Therefore, Bhagwan Shankaracharya uses the name Maya for the Karana Shariram also. He says, Maya Yaya, the last line, Maya. This Karana Shariram is given the name Maya. Various names of this Karana Shariram are given here. It is also called as Maya. Why is it called as Maya? Because it cannot be categorically defined. Yama Samaya. Whether the Maya is there or not, next verse it will come. Whether Maya is really there, is it not there? Is it manifest? Is it unmanifest? What is it? Maya is avyaktaha. That is what is told here. So, what is this Maya? Maya is the causal state, bija state, in which nothing can be categorically defined. If you break a seed of a mango tree, can you see the mango tree in that? You cannot see. But then definitely the mango tree has come out from the mango seed by the karyam, by the effect, by the product of the mango tree. You can make out that this tree was present in an avyakta form, in an unmanifest form, in the seed form, in this karana avastha. That is what is said here. What is this karana shariram? It is a seed form of this Sthula Sukshma Sharira. It is the seed form of the Sthula Prapancha and Sukshma Prapancha. And because nothing is seen there very clearly, it is called as Avyakta. The first word, Avyakta Namni. This Maya is called as Avyakta. The name given to this Maya. Maya is the last word in the third line. Maya, that Yaya Jagat Sarvam Idam Prasuyate. This Karana Shariram is also called as Maya, from which the Sthula and the Sukshma Shariras are created. The Sukshma and the Sthula Jagat is created. From this Maya, the entire Sthula Prapancha, Sthula Shariram, Sukshma Prapancha, Sukshma Shariram are created. That's what he said in the last one line. Now, what is this Maya? The names, different names given to this Maya are explained. Avyakta Namni. It is called as Avyakta. This Karana Shariram or Karana Avastha is called as Avyakta. What is the meaning of Avyakta? That which is not available for perception, which is in a unmanifest form, which is in a potential form. So this is what is called as Avyakta. Avyakta Namni Paramesha Shaktihi. Paramesha Shakti means it is the very Shakti of Ishvara. It is the very Shakti of Ishvara. Now, can you say this Paramesha Shakti is different from Paramatma? It is Paramatma Shakti. It is the Shakti of the Brahman. It is called as Paramesha Shakti. Therefore, is the Paramesha Shakti different from Ishvara? Now, see, I am speaking. Now my speaking power, I'm speaking, it is a Shakti. It is my Shakti. It is an instrument. My speaking power is my instrument. I'm speaking through that. Now, is this speaking power different from me? Is this speaking power a part of me? Is it a product of me? Is it my property? Is it the same as me? No. My power is not an independent power. My speaking power is not an independent power. It depends upon me. I can be without my speaking power, but the speaking power cannot be without me. I cannot separate the speaking power from me. Otherwise, I could have sent my speaking power here, which will speak to you all. I have to be here. Therefore, I have to be there behind the speaking power. The speaking power independently cannot function. It has to be backed by me. But then, when I am not speaking, this speaking power is avyakta in me. It is there in a potential form. But when I come here and sit in front of you and talk, that avyakta power of my speech becomes manifest. Similarly, the apara prakriti called as Maya is the power of Parameshwara. Parameshwara means Brahman. It is the very power or very Shakti of Brahman. That is why it is said that without Shakti, Brahman cannot create the universe. Without Brahman, Shakti cannot create the universe. Therefore, both of them have to be together. I alone without my speaking power cannot speak. The speaking power alone without my backing cannot speak. Similarly, Brahman's power, called as Maya Shakti, cannot do anything without the presence of Brahman, without the support of Brahman. That is why Apara Prakriti by itself cannot project a world on its own. That is why Bhagwan said in Bhagavad Gita that I, the Para Prakriti, support this Maya or Para Prakriti, and by my support, this Maya creates an entire world of myriads of names and forms. And I can be without using that power, but this power is a power which is avyakta in me, which is all the time me. This Maya is not different from me. This Maya is not separate from me. At the same time, it is an integral Shakti associated with me. This is our Ardhanarishwara concept. This is why we say Shiva Shakti concept. Shakti alone cannot create anything. Shiva alone cannot create anything. Shakti is the matter principle. Shiva is the consciousness principle. Brahman is the consciousness principle and Maya is the matter principle. And therefore, this combination of Brahman with Maya, this combination of Atma with Karana Sharira Maya is what creates the Sthula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram. It is Brahman with its Maya Shakti together create what is called as the Sthula Prapancham and the Sukshma Prapancham. Therefore, this is Parameshwara Shakti. This is the power or this is the Shakti of Brahman, but it is avyakta. It is avyakta. It is in a potential form. It is called as the Upadana Karanam of this entire Jagat. Karana Shariram is the Upadana Karanam of Sthula Shariram as well as Sukshma Shariram. It is present in the avyakta form, in an unmanifest form. Just like the seed in which the tree is in an unmanifest form, and when the time comes for the tree to sprout, the tree becomes manifest in a manifest form from the avyakta Maya. So this Maya is avyakta Shakti of Brahman. It is in a potential form in which the Sthula Sukshma Sharira are existing in potential form. The Sthula Sukshma Prapancha are existing in a potential form. And whenever the time comes for the manifestation of the Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira, it manifests from this unmanifest form. Therefore, what is the manifestation of Sukshma Sthula Sharira? What is the creation of Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira? Manifestation from an unmanifest form is called as creation, and from manifest form going back to unmanifest form is called as pralaya. When the Jagat manifests itself from a potential form, it is called as a creation. When the world goes back into a potential form in the form of pralaya, it is what is called as the resolution. So this Avyakta Namni, it is Paramesha Shakti. So in the next session, we'll see what are the other names given to this Karana Sharira. So Karana Sharira is given various names depending upon its features or its Svarupas, its Lakshanas, and various names are given here, which we'll see in the next session. नन्दन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषकाः अवस्था शाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोऽस्तु गुरुः सदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ तत्सत्।